Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back to take a look at two really cool Nanmu figures. But these are actually two figures from a line that it almost seems like everybody has forgotten about at this point, because there was a line of Nanmu Dinosaur busts that had come out. I actually do have one in my collection, which is the female Tyrannosaurus, but I recently saw a few up on eBay for auction, and I went ahead and bid on the two that I've been most wanting, and I'm really excited to now have them. We can see we have the Carnotaurus and the Allosaurus, so definitely hyped to finally have a chance to take a look at these. You can see the boxes are pretty much like you would expect, you know, the usual sort of black and white look, or at least as far as, you know, your older kind of classic Nanmu boxes. We've also got a nice shot of the head of the Allosaurus, and then as you move through, it's basically just white, and then you've got like the Nanmu logo and stuff throughout, and of course you'll see the same thing for the Carnotaurus box. So let's go ahead, pop them both open, and check them out. So there they are, but unfortunately I'm actually having a little bit of trouble with mine. First of all, we've got the Allosaurus on the right, and it looks amazing. The Carnotaurus as well looks amazing, but I'm having some problems keeping it here on the base like it's supposed to be. It's supposed to connect with a magnet, but as you can see, it just kind of falls off, and I don't know why. It seems to really want to come back to this spot, but maybe the magnet inside the base just isn't strong enough to hold it on there. I don't know if there's some sort of issue going on with that. I did try the Carnotaurus bust on the Allosaurus base, and it worked fine, but it's not sticking to this one, so I may have to just glue it on there, I guess, at some point, because honestly I don't really intend on taking it off, so there's not really much of a point in not gluing it on. But if we move the Allosaurus over and we just take a look at the dinosaurs themselves, first of all, again, we begin with the Carnotaurus. You can see it looks so nice. Like, sculpt-wise, it is gorgeous. Definitely resembles a Jurassic World Carnotaurus quite perfectly. This one does actually have a chipped horn on it as well, which is pretty cool. Definitely something that I personally really enjoy, even if it is the more female or the more kind of Fallen Kingdom, you know, reddish-brown version. It does still have the chipped horn, kind of like we see on the male in Dominion. I think that was just something that Nanmu probably did when this was released, just to give it some, you know, uniqueness, a little bit of flavor, but ended up actually being something that they did in the films. I think, anyway. I could be wrong. I don't know exactly when this one was released, but when it comes to the skin texture, you can see it looks really good. It's extremely highly detailed, exactly as I would expect for a Nanmu release. We've got all sorts of variation to the scales here in the face, as well as some osteoderms and stuff popping up here and there. The mouth is in an almost closed position, with it just being slightly open, and we can see all of the teeth look really cool. You can't really get inside the mouth or anything, so no need to really try, but the teeth look pretty nice, and they also are painted pretty nicely. I actually have a little variation of color to them and a very realistic look, which is a plus. The eyes as well are painted perfectly. We can see a little variation of color to the eyes as well. Very impressive, actually, in that area. And the gloss coat making sure that those eyes shine and look real lifelike. We also have quite a bit of variation of color, and I like the way that they've painted this, where it kind of looks like maybe it had like a brown to start with, like a base coat, and then they've painted over it with like all the different reds and stuff that they have going on here, and the blacks. But you can see like the browns sort of creeping through all of the different scales here on the face of the Carnotaurus, which is really, really neat. And there's also a good bit of variation of color with all sorts of different darker shades of browns and reds and even blacks, basically, or very dark grays and stuff as you move up there. As we lead into the horn of our Carnotaurus, we can see a nice light tone with a darker tone kind of creeping through all the cracks and crevices of the horn. We have even like some greenish gray tones following along the top of the head of the Carnotaurus. As we turn and we take a look over here on the opposing side, again, we've got that kind of cracked horn, which looks really neat, and pretty much the same style of sculpt and paint and everything. As you move into the underside of the throat, you can see a lighter tone down here. Again, a dark wash applied to help highlight the detail quite nicely. And obviously we have like a line of ridges following along the back, as well as the osteoderms and stuff picking up that would normally run down through the length of the body. But that's really about it for the Carnotaurus. It looks super nice though, and has a nice soft backside here to it. But we have a very cool base that, again, just doesn't seem to want to hold the Carno on. But when it comes to the base, we have actually variation of color with different shades of grays and greens and even some reddish tones in there, which looks really neat. It has kind of like a concrete sort of a look, and then there's like cracks and stuff throughout, which definitely helps to make it look even cooler. So basically looking like there's like damage and stuff. Again, kind of giving you the feeling of like maybe a statue in Jurassic World after it's kind of collapsed for a few years, and we just have dinosaurs roaming and, you know, all sorts of damage and stuff, which looks really neat. Very nice and impressive texturing throughout, very high quality look and feel, and overall is a beautiful base, honestly, for the Carnotaurus. And then on the underside, you can see Ranger, and that this is number 21. But I'm not sure how many the limited edition number is overall. And then we've also got the Allosaurus, and this is like the second paint variant sort of for the Allosaurus, although it's the only version I think that is released for the Allosaurus bust. But rather than, you know, giving it the Jurassic World colors, it looks like it's given the other coloration, like the second variant that was out, which I think looked really neat. But we've got a very impressive sculpt on this one. Obviously extremely vibrant detail throughout. We have the nice Allosaurus crests, and they even have like a little bit of a dry brushing over them to help highlight the detail. Again, a good bit of variation to the scales and stuff throughout. You've got smaller scales moving up into the palate and stuff, larger scales kind of following along the jaw line, a bit of variation to the scales moving back even near the eye and everything. The eye again looks great as far as the way it's painted, or maybe they're decals. I'm not sure how exactly they're applied, but they look very realistic, and again, a good bit of variation of color to the eyes. Nice white, then it's like a black, then a yellow, and then a black pupil, and the gloss coat shining really impressively. You've got like a reddish brown moving through, kind of like a yellowish tan sort of a tone, then a darker tone following along the jawline, and a darker tone moving up and over the top of the head. We also have a darker, kind of like a black circling around the eye, and then variation of color down here on the lower jaw, some really large scales following along right here. But the mouth is sculpted in an open position on the Allosaurus. We can see the skin sort of stretching here on the inside of the mouth. And again, even variation of color in there, as well as a very nice satin shine. The teeth as well sport some variation of color. Kind of looks like they're painted with like a light tan and then given a wash to help just add realism to the figure, which I think looks really cool. All of the teeth also look super sharp and impressive when it comes to that. They look very legit, like it could absolutely tear me to shreds if it wanted to. We have the nostrils again sculpted out up there. And as we move down, we actually have some really cool kind of hanging skin in the throat with sort of like some pointy kind of ridges hanging off of the throat right there. And then again, more variation of color leading back. You've got like a black stripe leading back, some variations of browns and lighter browns, darker browns following along the top, this really nice light yellowish brown, and then some more reddish browns and some darker browns. There's so much color just for this very small bust. Again, tons of color on this Allosaurus. And then you also have the ridges here moving along the top of the body, painted out again, which looks really neat. So absolutely gorgeous, and again looking very reminiscent to the Allosaurus release that we have had previously from Nanmu. And the base again is exactly the same as the Carnotaurus base. There's no difference as far as the sculpt or paint. The underside though, we can see says Blade, but I actually don't have a number on the underside, so I don't know what number of this limited edition it is, so that's kind of confusing. But overall, pretty much the same thing as far as the other base goes. And again, you can see that it just kind of attaches with a magnet. And then same deal for the Carnotaurus. Oh, didn't want to stay on. Oh, now it was just working. It was staying on before. Oh, there we go. So now we have it on. I just had to reposition it. And you can clearly see the Carnotaurus bust is now sitting on there, but for some reason, it doesn't want to stay on there that nicely. The Allosaurus bust definitely stays on a bit nicer than the Carnotaurus bust does. They're not all that large in size either. Like for a length on the Allosaurus bust, about 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters, and then for a height, and that's of course the length of the actual head to the neck, not to the back of this. But for a height for the top of the base, about 4.25 inches or around 11 centimeters. And if we were to measure the Carnotaurus is a little bit shorter at 3.25 inches or around 8.5 centimeters, roughly, maybe a little bit under. So a little difference in size. But if we actually bring the Carnotaurus bust out of here, and then we'll just do a quick size comparison. Now, I definitely don't think we need too many comparisons, but here is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human Being, next to our Nanmu Allosaurus bust, and we can get a pretty good feel for the size of these busts. Again, they're not gigantic in any way, shape, or form, but they're still pretty nicely sized. And to kind of give you an idea as far as the difference in size, we have the bust of the Allosaurus next to the actual model from Nanmu, and you can very clearly see, again, the size is pretty impressive as far as the head sculpt of the bust compared to the head sculpt of the actual released model, but it's still, again, by no means is a huge model. And if we were to bring in a Nanmu Carnotaurus, here's the Smart Series Carnotaurus next to the bust of the Carnotaurus, which again you can very clearly see a pretty significant difference in size. So these Nanmu dinosaur busts are honestly really cool. I feel like they are absolutely underrated, underappreciated in general, because it's that one line that Nanmu has released that almost everybody seems to forget about. And I think one part of that is the fact that these weren't really released as widely as a lot of other Nanmu figures were. Like, you don't really see too many retailers really promoting or selling these, which is unfortunate because they're super cool. But I think it is, you know, that aspect that kind of makes them even more fun to collect, because they're not so widely available and they're sometimes a little tricky to get a hold of. It does kind of make them more fun. The unfortunate thing is they sometimes do kind of fetch a little bit of a hefty price tag. I don't know if it's because they're not so easily found or if it's just because there weren't all that many made for these figures. I'm not too sure. I was able to score these guys for $30 each, which I felt like was a pretty decent price, but they sometimes can fetch a pretty penny. Not, you know, massive amounts of money, but a little bit more than you might expect for something of this size. But they do have all of the classic Nanmu quality to them. Again, when it comes to both the sculpt and paint, they are out of this world, absolutely gorgeous. Both figures, I think, look excellent and again are extremely realistic, making them even more appealing. So if you are interested, I would say check eBay, you know, places like that. I don't really know too many retailers that actually sell them. I often find them on eBay, so that's probably your best bet, is to just search around on there, or maybe Mercari or something like that. And if you can find them, pick them up, because they are pretty darn cool. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.